Further clarification of nation-state freedom initiative filed in The Hague. Here's an article from the past April that explains in more detail the purpose and result of filing the paperwork to sever our ties from corporate USA, as well as some historical information. Here are some good points here, and I think it simplifies a lot. Illuminati Kabbalion flee by the hundreds as mass arrests await them from states becoming free from the Fed. The cabal members and their 6,000 or so minions are now quitting their banking positions in the hundreds and soon to be thousands because the individual states filed the proper paperwork to become independent of the U.S. corporation owned by the Federal Reserve Bank, who's controlled by the cabal, which means that the U.S. military obeys what the states want and not what the Kabbalions want. This is huge. The military is sick and tired of following the orders of the Kabbalions, as they know it's totally wrong, but they were forced to because it's the law. They must follow what the governing body tells them to do, and that governing body has been the United States Corporation, which is controlled by the elite Illuminati wanksters. They have put the U.S. corporation in debt trillions of dollars through fraudulent actions of passing the losses on it while stealing the profits through companies like Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and J.P. Morgan Chase. They forced the Treasury to borrow money from the Federal Reserve Bank, which they own and is a private corporation that reports to no one, and have basically piled all the debts that they created, not the American people, into the Treasury, which makes the U.S. corporation so far in debt that they are essentially bankrupt. They plan to make us sheep pay that debt while they live like kings and use us as their slaves. Their plans will fail and are currently failing as I write this. In this interview with an insider named Drake, who speaks with David Wilcock about what is currently going on behind the scenes, and people not are but have now taken action to free the American people from these Illuminati cabal wanksters. They have filed the proper paperwork to make the various states, I don't know how many, but a majority of them do this, independent sovereign nation states. In this 3-hour interview, Drake explains how he was listening to a radio show where the host was giving bad information on how to argue with a judge in court on how to get out of a speeding ticket, not pay your debts, beat the IRS, etc. Drake knew this information was not correct and could get you up to 6 months in jail if done that way the host was telling people to do it. Drake got frustrated and decided to call into the radio show to correct it. He studied the law for over 2.5 years recently about how to get your freedom back, which covered a lot more than what this guy was telling people. Drake was introduced to a group of people in 1979 that wanted him to read a 5-inch thick stack of documents that would free America from the cabal way back then. So he wasn't new to the idea of using the legal law to protect yourself in court. It went much deeper than anything this host of the radio show was speaking about. In fact, back in 1979, these people even thought of staging a military coup against the ruling elite that was enslaving the American people, but decided against it and instead looked to find legal laws that would do the same thing. Drake talks about how you can declare your own sovereignty, which I'm sure got the host of that show to listen more to what Drake had to say, as he clearly was giving out information that wasn't correct. Drake speaks on that show of how you can declare your own nation-state independent of the U.S. corporation. This was all 100% legal, and all it took was filing the correct paperwork. Someone from Pennsylvania was listening to the show taking notes, who was very knowledgeable in the sovereignty and lawfulness about the new and decided implement. Gotta read that again. Someone from Pennsylvania was listening to the show taking notes, who was very knowledgeable in the sovereignty and lawfulness about the law, and decided to implement what Drake has said. They put together a process of notification and sent it off to the International Court of Hague. This is the civil division. It was sent by certified mail to make sure that they had proof that it was delivered to them. The court sent a reply back that they received it. Stay with us here, folks. It's just getting interesting. This meant that it goes into Hague. This meant that it goes into Hague public record and is similar to posting a notification in an international newspaper. It's basically stating that I'm not responsible for my debts any longer, and we are now an independent sovereign nation state. This freed Pennsylvania from the debts created by the elite Illuminati Kabbalion through the Federal Reserve Bank that was put onto the U.S. corporation. When this happened, the office of the International Court of Hague gets a call from the higher up in the Pentagon, the military good guys who are sick of this Kabbalion, who want to know if they can duplicate the paperwork to be used to free other states, of course. The clerk that answers the call was sure, but said that it's possible. This clerk simply works there and had no clue what the document really meant, I believe, and I'm sure she didn't have any affiliation with the Illuminati Kabbalion, which meant that she would be happy to assist the request of the higher up in the Pentagon. So they started to duplicate this paperwork, all this starting in about October 2011, and since it was started with someone from Pennsylvania who got the idea from listening to the radio show that Drake called into, they contacted Drake and asked him if he would help in putting this together. Drake was of course extremely happy when he realized that someone from Pennsylvania was listening to his call into the radio station, and that they actually decided to take action and do what he was talking about. Currently, as of about February the 20th of 2012, there are enough states that filed to make America free from the U.S. corporation. He gladly assisted them in helping to put this package together. For many other states, a majority is all I heard in the interview, and no specific number, which has now been completely sent off, received, and filed by the International Court of Hague. They, the good guys in the Pentagon, received notice in the end of February of 2012 that the office of the International Court of Hague basically got all the paperwork from all the states and filed it. This makes it legal and declares these states as independent sovereign nation states. The basic premise of the nation state is that while they can write their own new constitution or use their existing one, it had to agree with the 1787 U.S. Constitution, with the original 13th Amendment founded in 1812, the Bill of Rights and the Articles of Confederation and the Declaration of Independence, by the states declaring their own nation state sovereignty and therefore removing themselves from the U.S. corporation. This rebirths the Declaration of Independence, which states on page 2 that if the government gets out of control, you have the right to get rid of the problem. The manner and format of using these original founding documents in junction with a meeting of resident representatives of these states gives those people the right to make the declarations. This in turn gives legal rights by the civilian authority to request the military to take action as necessary to back up the civilian action, basically carry out the will of the people of those states. The military just loved it, as they can now follow the legal law and actually carry out a will of the civilian people, not the elite Illuminati Kabbalions anymore. There was also a group of Indian nations that submitted paperwork in such a fashion that the United States, the individual states, has been set free from the corporate government, the cabal gangsters, literally, on a lawful basis and recognized internationally, just like the Indian nations were. Having this international recognition means that the governing body of America is no longer the U.S. corporation run by the cabal, and is now the individual states that filed the proper paperwork that together make up the United States, which is basically the people of each state and not some evil group of old rich men that I call the Illuminati, Reptilian, Kabbalion, Wangsta Bangsters. From now on, the people are in control of America and have told their state representatives to arrest these Illuminati, reptilian, Kabbalian, wankster, gangsters, bankers. Here's how this works. The military must obey the wishes of the governing body, which in the past has been to stage undeclared wars on innocent people around the world, something they are sick of doing and they know it's wrong. The Constitution forbids them from breaking into civil homes and arresting innocent Americans, but the cabal has been trying to stage this World War III for quite some time now, so they can declare martial law in America and force military to ignore the Constitution and obey their orders to round us all up and put us in FEMA camps. This plan isn't going to work, and it will actually turn against them, as they will be the ones rounded up and put in these FEMA prison camps that they built for us sheep. Payback is a bitch, baby. Sorry, gang. I just write down what I feel, and sometimes it's anger and sometimes it's laughter. Too funny here. I just had to make this picture. You'll see it later on. If you want to read more of the story, just check out the rest of the page, and it's really gonna get interesting. So sit back and do what you can to inform each other and keep informing each other. Peace and love, and